Welcome to Mac Talk, a Middle Tennessee podcast from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm your announcer, Kennedy Galvin. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at the Grand Tents and Events.
Thank you, Kennedy, and welcome everyone to Mac Talk. I'm your host, John Pitcher. We like to think of the Mac as a cultural town square where we encourage everyone to be their creative best. So, Kennedy, today we're going to be doing an episode on what artists need to do to get their art out there in front of the public. And I'm just wondering, what is your favorite kind of place to see art and why? And by that, I mean, do you like to go to see art at big museums or small galleries or DIY spaces or something different?
So personally, I would say one of my favorite places to see art is actually online. A lot of social media sites.
So that's something different.
Yeah, that is something different.
Something different. Yeah. Online is a favorite place.
I see a lot of mine online because I follow a bunch of different artists on pretty much every different social media I'm on. And it's just nice to see like all the different things that people come up with. And it's from around the world too. It's not just like kind of centralized to, oh, it's just in Nashville. It's everywhere. You get to see a lot of different perspectives, and really you could see how other people from around the world are able to create art in different ways.
That is an interesting insight because that is something I know we're going to be talking about a little bit later, which is the whole idea of the online presence.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, having an Instagram account or having a website or something like that's kind of cool. Well, what do you like to? Where else do you like to see your art? When you're actually leaving your house. Ooh. And not having your cell phone in front of you, where do you like to see it? I can tell you that in my case, I think some of my most memorable experiences have been at the bigger museums, like at the Louvre in Paris or MoMA in New York, or the Frist here in Nashville.
Or even,
where do you like to go?
What's the art museum in Washington, D.C.? The big one.
Are you thinking about the National Portrait Gallery or the Smithsonian?
The Smithsonian's Art Gallery.
Okay.
Those are fantastic. Whenever I went there, it was pretty impactful. I'd say the Frist has had a few really fantastic. There was Norman Rockwell a few years ago that was just beautiful.
One of the most surprising exhibits I think I ever saw was at the National Portrait Gallery in D.C.
Yeah.
Wasn't what you would have expected from the National Portrait Gallery in D.C. It was an exhibit of video games.
Oh, okay.
Going all the way back to like the most primitive games imaginable to ones now that are almost like, 3D realistic. They're almost like virtual reality.
Right.
But it was really interesting to see. And it gave me a really amazing appreciation for where the games are now.
The Frist had a kind of similar exhibit like that as well, where they had animation.
Right.
And it was going through like 1920s, 1930s, like the start of early animation to
would go back
pretty recent.
That goes back really far.
They had Tron in it, which was cool because it was like the first 3D animated CGI movie.
Okay.
Or one of the first.
Wow.
But it was a crazy exhibit.
That is cool.
I wish it was still around because it was so neat.
Yeah. Well, that's what I get from the big places is those kinds of really comprehensive and sometimes very off the wall sort of exhibit. Well, let's dig in with our guest and introduce her. Ruth Chase is the MAC's Regional Arts Director, a graduate of the San Francisco Art Institute. Ruth has over 30 years of experience as a professional studio artist. She has taught art at the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento, California. Her artistic achievements were recognized with a Certificate of Appreciation from the city of Los Angeles. As Mont Haven's Regional Arts Director, Ruth has introduced a new series called Meet Me at the Mac. The series helps new and established artists grow their careers. Ruth is here today to talk with us about the things artists need to do to advance their own careers. We're excited she's here. Ruth Chase, welcome to Mac Talk.
Thanks for having me, John.
Well, I'm really excited about this show. This show is an idea you came up with that I thought was really helpful, potentially to artists. And the whole subject is, what do artists need to do to get their work out there before the public in galleries and other kinds of spaces? And I thought, before we really dig into some of those details, I wanted to just get a sense of how you did it. What inspired you to become an artist in the first place, and what was your training?
Well, I think the reason why I'm so passionate about this topic is because I've done all the mistakes. My training is at 21. I started the San Francisco Art Institute and got a degree in painting with a minor in African American history. And then I went on to work in the film industry and eventually worked my way around to being a grant recipient for many years, working and producing projects for the state of California.
Okay. Well, let me turn this into a bit of a two-part question as well. You went to get some fairly advanced formal training. Is formal training necessary to be an artist?
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, I ask you because we have a podcast that we have just run featuring the Tennessee artist Nadine Schillingford, and she's largely self-taught, and she's really quite amazing.
Yeah, very educated and self-taught.
I mean, she's self-taught as an artist. Yeah. She has a PhD in computer science.
Right.
But, I'm just wondering, what are the advantages of formal training versus just maybe doing it on your own?
The biggest thing I see from artists who have not had advanced training or gone to college or art school or had parents who were artists is a certain kind of maybe guilt or a feeling imposter syndrome that seems to hit them more than anyone else. But regardless, I did not learn how to be an artist by going to art school, and no one needs to go to art school to become an artist.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads me to my second question. One of the things that I love about your paintings and about your art is it has an immediately identifiable style and signature. I like to say, if I were walking down just some alley in Beijing and I saw one of your pieces just lying in the alley without any signature on it, I would know immediately, that's Ruth. How did it get here in China?
That's great.
So I am wondering, how important is it for an artist to, when they're putting their stuff out there, to really have a style that's that unique, that individual? And if it is really important, how does any artist go about finding that voice?
So I have a couple of thoughts about that. Consistency is absolutely not important to be an artist. And I would encourage anybody at any state that they are beginning to become an artist, whether they are an older in age or just starting out at whatever age, to explore, experiment, and to really accrue a breadth or a spectrum of exploration and playing. And the further you get along down the path, the less you tend to do that. So it's very important to do that in the beginning. But to be an artist and to get your work out there, a certain kind of consistency does hold a weight. People know who you are. And also, when you get to a place of consistency, I believe the work tends to have a little bit more confidence or a weightedness to it.
That was that particular question, but I'm just wondering, one thing I didn't necessarily hear from you that I often hear from all sorts of creative people is that sometimes in developing your individual style, you often find artists whose style really appeals to you and you kind of copy them until eventually your own voice comes through, because eventually your own voice will come through. Sometimes you might not like it. You're like, wow, I wish I really looked like that or sounded like that. But if you're persistent enough and you're imaginative enough, you will have an individual style.
Yes, I think eventually, if you keep working at it, you will have an individual style. And copying or using artists that inspire you is an absolute great place to start. In theory, it doesn't always work out that way, because as soon as you put brush, if you're painting, put in brush to canvas, you may not find that your hand wants to go the way that you are mimicking. A lot of artists who do not go to college often do not realize how a lot of professional artists, myself included, but not every artist, create a solid body of work. A lot of artists just do one piece at a time. So the first thing that I would say to an artist who wants to get their work out there, and they've gotten to the place where they are maybe not experimenting less, but they're starting to find out who they are, is start with 2, 3, 4, 5. Someone like myself, when I put out a new series, I start with 10 or 15 canvases. So start with an amount that feels right to you. And the idea with that is that you work on all of the pieces and enter exchange at the same time. So if you get stuck on one, there's no reason you can't go to someone else, another piece, and you can jump back and forth. What happens is at the end, let's just say you have 6 or 10 pieces, there's some coherency there.
So you're developing a style within your own body of work.
Right. And there's some consistency, even as it changes over 6 months or a year. If you're working on all of those pieces at about the same time, it just naturally produces more cohesiveness.
Mm-hmm. When did you get your first exhibition when you were in California? I should know you're a Californian by birth.
Yes. Well, I started out in coffee shops and coming out of college, one of the benefits of going to college is people pursue new graduates. So I had a couple of exhibits right out the gate, and I can't think of the names of the places, but they were in Venice Beach and Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And actually, 2 of probably my most prominent exhibitions happened early on, and then I went through a long period of having to work back up to that place, that kind of exhibition.
Wow, well, the recommendation of coffee shops sounds really good to me. I mean, people, I think, need to be pretty open to the idea that you can show your art almost anywhere.
You can, and when you're starting out, or you're even just in between more serious gigs, so to speak, a coffee house, a restaurant. There's so many places in Nashville to exhibit your work. And many of them have that information right on their website.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were from California. You moved here with your family. How is the Nashville art scene different from the California art scene? How is it in terms of like finding places to show your work, just working here as an artist? How is it different?
It doesn't feel entirely different. You have entry-level places, and when I say that, I don't mean that they're less than. What I mean is they're just a little easier to get into. It's just a matter of waiting in line. Certain coffee houses, you get on their list, you're just eventually going to show there. That happens all over California, and any big city has those places. And then there are mid-level galleries, and then there's the galleries that feel like, unless you're part of the club, you have no idea how to get in. And then you have the museum. So it's kind of the same. The art scene's different in terms of the style of art that people are interested in here.
What's the style of art people are interested in here? What do you see when you're down in Nashville for the most part?
Oh, well, I do see that there's 2 things. There's a great love for abstract art here. There's also a love for art that, and this is so cliche coming from Nashville, but more lyrical art. Mm-hmm. When I say that, I mean art that has storyline and some soul to it. California, last I checked, they love their hardline stuff, or what's called hard edge art. Nashville also loves landscapes.
And outdoor painters.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't see that as much in California.
Oh, how interesting. Well, okay, we'll say that you are an emerging artist, but you have developed a style that's becoming more uniquely your own, and you have been working on a small series of pieces, maybe half a dozen, maybe a dozen. You've got that. What are the next steps? What do you do?
Well, there's a couple of things. So the first thing is you have to decide what avenue you want to take. There's, if you're going for galleries, that's a different avenue than maybe just saying, I just want to make money and make a living. There's, art fairs, there's festivals, there's lots of ways to go. But let's talk about, you have 6 to 10, maybe 12 pieces, you have a body of work. You need good photographs. You can do that with a smartphone if you know how to do it right. So they're cropped, the color's fairly true, they're crisp, you can see the work. If the photograph does not...
I assume they need to be flat too, right? I mean, they need to be something that can be reproduced intelligibly.
Yes.
In a magazine or a newspaper or wherever else you might send it.
Right. And if you can't do that yourself, you can have a place like Chromatics do it for you. Mm-hmm. So you need good photographs. So good, clear photographs. And if you can't tell what your work looks like in a photograph very well, like, for example, some abstract art does not photograph well, hard edge work does photograph well, you might need a video or a certain kind of perspective. But anyhow, you have your images, then you need a presence online. You don't have to have a website. You don't even have to have a successful Instagram, but you need to have a place where people can go to see your work. So minimally, an Instagram account would allow you the ability to look at that work.
Well, that was actually kind of where I was heading with my next question. There's such a strong DIY culture in Nashville and its art scene, and I'm just wondering, how much should emerging artists just try to do this work themselves, or to what extent maybe should they look to find someone who's an actual photographer or an actual web designer to put something together? Because obviously the more you have online, the more you can sort of showcase your work, I would imagine the better off you'd be.
Yeah. So, know what your weaknesses are, know what your strengths are, and then figure out where you can meet that with your pocketbook. Mm-hmm. So if you do not have the funds to have someone else photograph your work, then look up videos or come to our Meet Me at the Max. There's also a lot of other career support venues and things happening in Nashville. Figure out how to photograph your work well. How
important is it to have a website? I mean, almost all the artists that I know will have a website.
Eventually. So when you're starting out, you just need an Instagram account, not because you need to play social media, because you need to have a place where people can look at your work. Okay. So minimally, you need one place that's visible. Eventually, a website, an artist statement, and the things that might build on those. Yeah. Well, the 10 to 12 pieces would be the beginning of a portfolio, right? So one way I like to make the analogy is, you and I are from the record, but we're in Nashville, so this is relevant. And, the young kids now listen to records. What do they have? 12 songs, John? Mm-hmm. You got 6 on each side. Well, you don't have a classical song mixed in with a heavy metal. If they're going to merge those two styles, there's some songs in between that tie that together. So your portfolio is similar. You've got 12 pieces that are a body of work. They're meant to go together. Mm-hmm. So eventually a website is a very valuable thing to have, but minimally an Instagram account.
We're speaking with the Max Regional Arts Director, Ruth Chase. We'll be back after this important message.
Grand Tents and Events is a strong supporter of arts education. The arts foster creativity, critical thinking, and emotional expression. Students engaged in the arts often perform better academically and develop lifelong appreciation for diverse perspectives. This message was brought to you by Grand Tents and Events. For more information, visit their website at grandtentsandevents.com.
We're back with the MAC's Regional Arts Director, Ruth Chase, who's here to provide artists with some helpful tips on how to show their work. Well, speaking of DIY culture, should an emerging artist, should they immediately go out and start looking for galleries, or should they maybe start looking at other kinds of options first, like a coffee house or a crafts fair or something like that?
Well,
how do you seek these opportunities?
So at first, getting experience by showing in a coffee house is a great thing to do. And if you only have a few pieces, you can get a few other artists together and put a group show together. But let's just say you have your body of work, you've got your 10 pieces on Instagram, you've got good photographs. You're probably going to next need an artist statement. Artist statement should be written for, your Uncle Fred who knows nothing about art. It's a very basic, straightforward, what is your work about? In fact, you do that for us all the time here at Mont Haven, don't you, John?
Sometimes.
And it's a statement about the work. It's what inspires you. What are you making? What are you interested in? And maybe how are you making it? Then, if you're going to step out further from a coffee house, one of the most important things, and you and I have talked about this, John, is you must get out to art openings. You have to know people. You have to be regulars at the galleries. You have to be part of the scene. It is not going to happen in your living room on a computer. If it does, you're lucky. But in general, it does take going out and being part of the culture, the art world. And through that, you will meet people and get opportunities. I just recently had an art exhibit. I invited some of my artist friends to those exhibits. If you have somebody invite you to an art exhibit, go to somebody else's art exhibit that you know.
And that exhibit was at Mod Fellows.
It was.
Right? And next week, by the way, we're going to have the gallery director from Mod Fellows coming in here to talk a little bit about what's the gallery.
Yeah, Richard's great. Yeah, Richard's great. Well, he met a friend of mine who's a very, very good artist, and she showed in his next show. Mm-hmm. So you really have to get out and be part of the art world. And build those. It's not just networking, it's authentic connections with people. I will tell you, as somebody who curates here, our regional arts here at Mont Haven, a lot of times the very best artists that would love to show in the Papillon Gallery.
And that's our local gallery here at Mont Haven.
Yeah, inside the museum. If I don't know about them, I don't have opportunity to show with them. But if I meet somebody whose work is good in person, I've already saved myself one step. So a lot of times, not always, but contacts and meeting people in person really help develop group shows and develop your contacts.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a big spring art festival here in Hendersonville, and there's the Tomato Arts Fest. So
that's a great one.
I'm assuming that that's another place that you should know and go and know the people. Is that right?
Yeah, Tomato Art Fest. We have so many opportunities in Nashville. My head spins. I gave you a list of, we did an artist at Meet Me at the Mac on how to show your work. And I went through, and I don't know, do I have 100 different sources here? Feels like 100. It might be 50, but it's somewhere in between, isn't it, John?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't go and count anything. What Ruth is talking about here? She's actually put together a brochure, essentially, that talks about how to do a lot of this work, which we'll eventually have online.
One other thing, get on email newsletters. I know that sounds a little old-fashioned, but go to sites, galleries, cultural centers. Mont Haven has one as well. If we do a call to artist, you're going to get that in your inbox. And a lot of places.
So you mean like gallery newsletters, sign up for the
Yes.
newsletters and things like that is what you're talking
Frist,
about. Okay.
The
And I guess these festivals have.
there's so
newsletters
many.
too.
The other place that you can, a place I really love is going to a website called locatearts.org. There you're going to see maybe not every single, but all of the artists that live and work in Nashville in its entirety. You're going to see galleries, and you're going to see what's happening in your local art scene. Mm-hmm. The other thing you can do once you get your body of work together, besides put yourself on newsletters so that you can stay in touch with the first call to artist, is there are websites that have all the call to artists listed throughout the country and internationally. And if you only want to stay in Tennessee, you can just put that into the search engine and they'll give you all of the opportunities just in Tennessee.
Okay. You mentioned that you are our curator here for the Papillon Gallery. People submit works to you when you do a call for artists. Do you have any pet peeves of what, things that you see are like, oh, you really are blowing your opportunity to get shown here?
Well, I'll tell you a few pet peeves and a few things that stand out in a positive way. Pet peeves are photographs that have people's feet in them, or it's foggy, just a poor photograph. The other pet peeve I have is when people send in photographs of their work and they do not save the work with their name on it. So when we get this last call, we had 325 works of art. Half of it, I could, even with the so when you don't follow instructions, you don't label put your name on your work, and that I can't explain it through this podcast. But
well, you also have to make sure that your work itself is properly labeled somewhere, right?
Yes. So
when you're submitting it,
right, when you drop off the work, whenever you do an exhibit, you always want to have your artist's first and last name and either your email or your website on the back of your work. Artwork without information is like a dog without a tag. And that artwork, if it gets sold from that coffee house or that gallery, it goes into the hands of an owner who looks at that piece a year later and cannot remember the name of the artist, but wants to get another piece. Mm-hmm. So you want people to be able to access your work, or they give it away as a gift and the person wants to know, oh, I love this artwork. Where can I get more? The positive is when people label the back of their work, but when they follow directions and they make note of the dates and times that things are happening in that exhibit. What will happen when you exhibit someplace, it's like a job interview in a certain way. Yeah. When you do a good job, the person wants to have you back again.
Oh, okay. We're speaking with the Max Regional Arts Director, Ruth Chase. We'll be back after this important message.
Grand Tinson Events reminds us that the arts help build well-rounded communities. The arts foster creativity and cultural understanding. They also promote education, economic growth, and emotional well-being. Interested in expanding your own creative horizons? Registration for the Max Spring Art classes is now open. Go to monthavenarts.org/classes for more information.
We're back with the Max Regional Arts Director, Ruth Chase, who's here to provide artists with some helpful tips on how to show their work. Let me ask you about various kinds of peer groups and artist groups, because I know, like, if you're a writer, a lot of writers like to belong to writers groups because it gives them a chance to try out their stuff, to see what their peers think. Are things like that helpful for visual artists?
I think visual artists underestimate the importance of being in a group. I think sometimes we just naturally often can be loners, but the value of being in a group generates an energy that keeps you on track. It also allows your fellow artists to support you and cheer you on. Because let's face it, the audience that you have in the beginning are your parents, your loved ones, and your friends. And that gets the ball rolling. So it's, as Cheryl likes to say here at Monthaven, when you're a musician, you want to go to a jam session. So those meetings for visual artists are like a jam session.
Well, from my own experience in graduate school for writing, I found that I often learned more from my peers than I did from my professors.
Oh, right.
Well,
they keep you up to date, too.
They keep me up to date. They keep me on my toes, and I get a lot of really good feedback.
Yeah. And I think what happens is that synergy of just being immersed in the topic of your interest, right?
Yeah. Well, you had a really wonderful show a few months ago at Mod Fellows. Tell me, what did you learn from that experience? Was there anything you wish you had known prior?
I feel like I want to answer your question with a completely different statement.
Sure, go ahead.
We were doing an artist talk. We were doing a Meet Me at the Mac. And one of the people in our group said, Ruth, can you tell me or give me advice on how to get what I want from the art world? And what I need to do to get it. And I realized in that moment that everything, so I am what would be considered late career. Everything that I have not had in my art career is 100% because I was afraid to get it. So, in other words, a lot of what has happened slowly for me has been because of my own fears or my own insecurities, right? To put yourself out there in the art world, you face a lot of rejection and or not being the cool kid, right? And if in the spirit of going for something, you get a lot more return because you're fearless and you're optimistic and you're relentless. A lot of artists, including myself, have played slow because of the high rate of rejection, right? I mean, I've taken so much rejection, but even with that, I can see now looking back on my career that it would have picked up the pace sooner if I had not been so apprehensive. So you asked me, what did I learn from the exhibit at Mod Fellows? Is that some of the things that I have wanted to do in my career, I could see how they were right there available for me. But I have often been in my own way.
Well, one of the reasons I asked that question is because I think that, in your discussions just with our director here, Cheryl Strichick, she's someone who's going to say, you've been given an opportunity to go show your work, take it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, maybe one thing that you pick up from this is just, when opportunities are out there, you don't know where they're going to be or what they're going to be, but when an opportunity arises, you need to be able to recognize it as an opportunity and willing to take it.
Yes. Well, the exhibit at Mod Fellows didn't just stumble along. That was maybe 6 months in the works.
Right.
Yeah. I got to know Rich. I got to know the gallery. He didn't just call me up one day and say, hey, I've seen your work on Instagram. You want to show here? So, but that's part of the fearlessness that I'm talking about, is being able to also take the time it takes to nurture an authentic relationship. That's really important. You're not just going to go into, well, it happened to my friend who came to my art show, but typically you're not just going to go into an art gallery or even be able to meet the director or the curator right away. And then most certainly you're not going to pull your phone out and start showing them work. I would advise against that. I'll be curious. I can't wait to hear Rich's talk. But it takes developing a relationship so that somebody authentically wants to look at your work. Mm-hmm. And then when they see your work and also see your work ethic, there's an opportunity there. And
so part of it is developing a relationship then.
Oh, relationships are everything. Everything. Work ethic.
So it's not just a transactional, thing that's just here and there. This is something you have to work on and build and develop.
Absolutely.
So it becomes more permanent, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't even need to be the best artist. Mm-hmm. I don't think... I know when I was working in the film industry, often we would work with actors that were maybe a little less better than some of the other actors because they were more professional and dependable and easy to work with. I think there's some of that applies in the art world too. Remember, we're producing shows one after another, mm-hmm. and not all the art is very subjective. So even if you feel like your work is not the best, that has really sometimes very little to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the things that you've mentioned a few times here is this wonderful program we have called Meet Me at the Mac. And that seems like that is perhaps the ideal place for people who want to break in or improve where they currently are in this business. That may be a good place to start. Tell us a little bit about Meet Me at the Mac, because you have brought this to our fine organization here. You are the moderator.
I am, and I love Meet Me at the Mac. It's not just meet me, it's meet fellow artists at the Mac. Every month we broach another topic. The one coming up is a critique. The ones that we've had in the past is social media, pricing your work, which is a very important thing, how to show your work, how to apply to an art exhibit, just a meet and greet. And a lot of times we start off with, okay, we're going to do the theme. We're talking today about self-esteem in the arts. Okay, let's go around the room and everybody check in. How's your month been? How's self-esteem, or how's the shows? What's happening in your world as an artist? And then we'll go into a broader conversation. And we have that conversation as a group.
Well, one of the things you just mentioned was pricing your work, which is something which I think a lot of artists struggle with, and a lot probably come in a bit low. I know some directors that I've talked to said that artists always undervalue what they do.
Well, it goes both ways.
How does that work? Tell me about it.
Well, I have a thought about that. Art pricing is like real estate. It's only going to sell for what people think it's worth. So if you're starting out and you don't know how to price your work, I would say you could go by $2 a square inch and see where that resonates with you. Mm-hmm. Does that price seem high? Does it seem low? When you exhibit your work the very first time, there are a couple of factors. Is the price too high? And in terms of not selling, do you have the right audience? So if your work is too high and say you have the right audience, you've exhibited your work, it's to your peers, it's to the right group, or you do all animals and it's at an animal festival, right? You're in the right location and you don't sell your work, then maybe you need to go down. I have learned this the hard way. Eventually, what I had to do in my career is bring my work down to where I sold a lot of work and then start creeping it back up to where I'm not selling out. Mm-hmm. And yes, if you're going to be in a gallery, they are going to demand a certain kind of pricing. Sometimes it means bringing it up. A lot of times it means bringing it down. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to sell your work and you're going to overprice it, think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Not everyone is in the art world to sell work. When I've had pieces like that, I usually put not for sale on the tag. But yeah, so that's my thought on pricing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we recently had a Picasso exhibit here, and it was filled with what was known as Picassos, which were the works that were so near and dear to his heart.
Right.
He never sold them. Of course, he could have sold anything.
Yeah, that's true.
But what an interesting idea. Well, what is the most important thing that you think you have learned as an artist, as just being a career artist? What is the big thing?
The more I let go, the better my work is. I started out at a very liberal art school. San Francisco Art Institute does not teach composition. They didn't teach color theory. There was no structure. In fact, it was very feel. I was at the school of, if you want to paint it, learn how to see it. Mm-hmm. I spent this is so Picasso. Picasso quotes this so perfectly. I spent a good part of my career teaching myself how to paint and got to the point of being photorealistic. And then, as Picasso puts it so well, have spent the second half of my career letting go of all of that. And I feel like my current work has never been more me. And it's taken me so long. And I just put something together, John, is maybe the fact that I feel more authentic and more me in my work than ever. It's a lot easier to make those relationships with galleries and contacts and sellers and collectors because I have a lot more confidence in my work than I did as I was coming up to the stage I'm in now.
Okay. Well, one last question. Is there anything that I did not ask you that I should have?
That's a great question. I think the very first step for artists that are wanting to get their work out is, one, what is it that you want? Do you just want to make art? Are you a hobbyist? Are you interested in having a career? Or do you have longer term goals like being in a gallery or maybe even a museum one day? Being honest about where you're at and where you're headed will really help you because those paths are very different. And if you don't know, you can decide along the way, but it is important to check in with yourself about where you're headed. Secondly, regardless of where you're headed, you will need a body of work and you will need to make contacts. That's probably just recapping, I think, what I think is really important. And in Nashville, there is no reason why you cannot show your work and you cannot be successful. There are so many organizations and locations that are available to you here. It's unbelievable.
Well, that is all very helpful. Well, Ruth Chase, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, John.
You've been listening to Mac Talk from Mott Haven Arts and Cultural Center. Our mission is to educate, elevate, and encourage our community through the transformative power of the arts. If you're interested in transforming your creative life, check out our website at motthavenarts.org. Our guest today was the MAC's Regional Arts Director, Ruth Chase. Our podcast music was written by Nashville composer Christina Spinay. I'm Kennedy Galpin. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.